over 90% of the time. Why are you breaking with him on Syria? What's changed?
Well, I think we're just making a strategic mistake here. There's no other way to put it. I am very concerned that we are creating the conditions for ISIS to return. The Kurds were guarding tens of thousands of ISIS fighters, and now they are no longer guarding those fighters. The jailhouse door is open because they're defending themselves against the Turks. Further, al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS, is still alive and is calling for his guerrilla fighters to attack these camps. Look, I understand the president's frustration and many people's frustration for how long these efforts have taken, too hard, too expensive. I understand that. But I think there's a misconception amongst many that we had tens of thousands of soldiers there. We had a few hundred Green Berets that were actually preventing endless war. They were a deterrent against war by establishing that buffer zone that by all accounts was working between the Kurds and the Turks, and keeping everyone focused on keeping a lid on that Pandora's box. That is ISIS. They can and will return. They will attack America again, and we have to stay on the offense. We have to fight these wars over there, Stephanie, not back at home, and it will follow us home.
Then as a counterterrorism expert, is the president mistaken when he says, listen, if some members of ISIS make their way out, they'll escape to Europe. That's not our problem. Is he wrong?
Well, I do think he's right in his criticism of France, Germany, and the UK, who had a lot of their own citizens defect over to ISIS and are in those camps, and that they are not helping us. They're not helping us deal with this situation in a meaningful way, but they are our allies, and instability in Europe is what we saw under the Obama administration when they were attacking all over Europe and then eventually inspiring attacks in the United States. You know, I was just down in Orlando where the Pulse nightclub was inspired by an ISIS lone wolf, and I don't ever want to see that again. That has not happened for good reason in the last several years, and that's because we have our foot on their neck overseas. We have to stay on offense and fight these wars in places like Damascus and Kabul, not back over here in the United States. Well,
you're taking action in the way that you can. You're co-sponsoring a bill to sanction Turkey's assault on the Kurds. Tell us about it.
Well, I'm working with Senator Graham and my colleague Liz Cheney. I think this will be a bipartisan effort. We are sanctioning Erdogan and his senior leadership. We are sanctioning those that are supporting this military effort, and we will prevent U.S. companies from doing business with the Turkish army until they withdraw this incursion. We need to stand with our Kurdish allies. We need to reestablish that safe zone. And again, we need to keep everybody focused on the true threat to both Europe and the United States, and that's a re-emergent ISIS.
In terms of standing with our Kurdish allies, what do you think is going through the minds of the men and women who have served our country but served alongside the Kurds? What do you think those members of the military are thinking?
Well, I've talked to Green Berets that are over there embedded with the Kurds, and they are disheartened and demoralized. But further, we have special operators in 60 to 70 countries now as we speak, in small groups working with local allies. That is the model, I think, for these future counterterrorism efforts, is let's train them, and it takes some time, but let's train them to take care of their security for us in line with our interests. And it sends a terrible message for those that just want to bring a few hundred troops home. Well, we still have 50,000 troops in Japan, 30,000 in South Korea, thousands in Germany. Heck, we even still have a battalion in the Egyptian Sinai. So there are a lot of areas where we can, shave a few troops and bring them home that aren't nearly as dangerous and have so much at stake as we do in Syria.
I do want to ask you about the impeachment inquiry before we go. Is it appropriate for the president, any president of the United States, to ask a foreign country to investigate a political rival?
Well, I think, look, everybody is projecting intent on that conversation. I, amongst many, think he was looking at corruption that could have happened from a sitting vice president. But here's the thing, Stephanie.
But if we're going to do
something, if we're going to do something so consequential as impeach a president of the United States, let's all stand up and be counted for a vote, and let's have open hearings. I'm calling on Chairman Schiff to release those transcripts from Kurt Volker and the intelligence community IG, and not run to the camera and spin the story.
Okay, Congressman,
I think we should all agree it should be open. I think we should all vote. and then we'll make that decision on whether that transcript and whether that conversation was treason, was it bribery, and was it high crime and misdemeanor. I'm hearing from Floridians all day long what happened to health care, transportation, immigration. Get to the nation's business. Stephanie, we're a year away from an election.
Excuse me, sir. I'm with you on all those kitchen table issues. So to that point, why don't you ask Mitch McConnell what he's doing with the 250 bills that have been passed in the House that he's sitting on? If you want to talk about infrastructure and those Floridians, why don't you ask them what the president is doing? It was 2 months ago. Hold on. It was 2 months ago that he walked out of the White House shaking hands with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. So I'm not sure why you're talking about Democrats. It's the president.
Well, no, I'm just telling you, I'm giving you the feedback. I just spent 2 weeks, held town halls, and people have had it up to here with the dysfunction that's in Washington. They want to have it out of the ballot box in less than a year, and let's get down to the nation's business. And I agree with you. I get frustrated with the Senate as well. Even in the last Congress where Republicans held both houses, we passed over 400 bills that didn't get taken up by the Senate. It moves much slower. It is frustrating. But at the end of the day, they want us to sit down, compromise, hammer these things out. And if you can't stand this president or his policies, then beat him at the ballot box.
So you want the full transcript from Kurt Volker's testimony. I'm with you there. I do too. Do you also want...
And from the intelligence community IG, and talking to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle that have been in the committee, they said it runs counter to the narrative that there's a quid pro quo. And it also talks about the intelligence committee's interaction with the whistleblower. So those are all things that we all should be asking for, and I think we all need to understand.
Are you also interested in the full transcript, the verbatim transcript of President Trump's call with the president of Ukraine? Because we don't have that. We have a brief summary.
So my understanding, this could have changed in the last 10 years. When I participated in those calls in the Bush White House, they were essentially people in the communications room taking notes. And those notes were compared, and then they were, of course, classified but disseminated around for follow-on action. So there is no, I want to be clear, there is no audio recording of a verbatim transcript unless things have changed since I've been there.
All right, we're going to leave it there. And just one more time, and you can put President Trump aside, any president. Do you believe it is appropriate for a president of the United States to ask a foreign government to dig up information on a political opponent?
Well, look, again, I think that he was looking at corruption.
I'm not talking about President Trump. I'm talking about
but
any
in
president.
general, I would be very uncomfortable with any type of very blatant quid pro quo, but that is not what I saw in that transcript, not at all.
Well, hopefully we're going to get more information. And possibly,
I agree with you there. That's absolutely what we need.
The former ambassador to Ukraine will hopefully be testifying today. Congressman, I really appreciate you.